I wanted to introduce our esteemed colleagues over there at Numecent. Truly a product that is really changing the way that we interface with our Citrix environments out there today. So with all due, I want to go ahead and introduce Duncan. Thank you very much, sir, and looking forward to the presentation today.
Our goal ultimately was to simplify the mobilization and management of applications across modern workspace and multi-cloud environments. And ultimately where that led us is today we're serving more than 1.7 million users worldwide. And with 56 patents under our belt and a few more pending. And so we're really excited about what the future holds for us here. And so why we're all here today is this next wave of technology. And so we all know that IT is this ever-changing landscape. And in the last few years alone, we're seeing, and I mean, really the past couple of weeks alone, we've seen the introduction of Windows 11 and Windows 365. And the top industry analysts have stated that the DAS market alone in 2020 grew 98%. So what we're seeing here is, modernization is going to be this ever-changing or ever-present thing in our lives. And conversely, with all that growth and the rapid adoption of VDI and DAS, AppV is approaching end of life, which I know for many of us was the go-to tool for modernizing applications from Windows 7 and Windows 10 to a degree. And we're now kind of losing that go-to packaging option. And the question becomes, what's going to be next for us? And so that's kind of why folks are turning to Numecent. And I'd love to tap into a little bit of that. And so in tandem with this rapid growth of DAS, I mentioned that Gartner said it grew 98% in 2020, and it's forecasted to grow 250% through 2024. And so part of this is applications, of course, are always developed for their era, if you will. So if we go all the way back to the mainframe era, PCs come around, apps weren't inherently built for it, and there's some catch-up time. And so what we're really here to do is ensure you can navigate those transitions seamlessly and continue leveraging those investments along the way. And so the bottom line is there's always this need for modernization, but also legacy investments are continuously great value adds and mandatory in some cases. And so we need to be able to future-proof these investments so they can seamlessly move. Now, of course, there's challenges with that, and that's what we're going to be breaking down for you today. Here's some common customer scenarios of why folks come to us and what challenges are being derived from here is legacy applications aren't running on modern OS or whatever the next OS is. Like I mentioned, we've already got Windows 11 emerging, Windows 365 as a cloud OS, and there's some new paradigm shifts going on. And a lot of the times this will require updates to application delivery, security, or compliance improvements. We need applications to run across multiple operating systems, or manual processes are hindering packaging and deployment, high failure rates and whatnot as applications are updating, plugins, et cetera. And as we've talked about multiple times throughout this summit already, is there's this need for self-service applications as we're getting these increasingly distributed workforces and whatnot. There's a lot of challenges that come into play. And so some of the modernization hurdles that we're running into, or that a lot of folks are coming to us with, is, I guess I should back up. What is the problem or challenge with these emerging OS? Well, we typically see applications in two categories, right? So first is that from large publishers, and they likely have new versions that are working on the most recent OS, but enterprises may need to keep those older versions to continuously maintain that data for specific needs. Without the legacy application, they can't continue using that data. And the second category is those from smaller publishers or those developed, line of business applications in-house, and they're created for a specific system, maybe Windows 7, 32-bit, and these are impacted by time and budget constraints, obviously, and we just need them to work. So unlike those large publishers, they may lack some of those quality control aspects against various versions from 32-bit to 64, home editions, enterprise editions of Windows. And there's probably some shortcuts like hard coding paths and registry locations. And so a lot of these line of business apps, they're for a specific OS, which makes them very difficult to port to these modern OS. And that's what we're going to kind of dive into a little bit and how we solve for some of those issues. Middleware or runtime libraries may have new versions that are not compatible with the modern OS per se. So whether it's homegrown or from a big publisher, then they're leveraging, say, an older version of Java, but you need to go to your modern OS. You've got other apps. Obviously, it's going to want to auto update and whatnot, and that's going to cause some compatibility issues with new applications. In fact, putting a legacy version of Java onto a modern OS could jeopardize the OS as a whole. And this, of course, carries over to multi-session environments in modern OS, such as Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session. And being that many of these apps are not inherently built for it, there's significant data leakage concerns that need to be addressed. Now, of course, Windows is progressing and continues to really enhance its security features, which is fantastic. And the issue, of course, with this becomes that these applications with the service hardening, kernel hardening, or UAC changes and advances, applications expect to write or modify certain places in the file system or registry, but they're unable to do so because, especially with limited users running applications on your OS, this all starts to add up. And even if we can get fixes, they're time consuming to modernize and maintain. And then, of course, they're not DevOps friendly. So that brings us to, what is cloud paging? Why are we here? And so it's really the next generation of application virtualization. What I mean by that is we kind of take a fundamentally different approach. We go through the process of abstracting applications from their operating system, dividing them into pages, hence cloud paging, and formatting them into our patented container technology. And what this ultimately enables you to do is format legacy, complex, customized, modern applications alike in a manner that allows them to run on any Windows-based environment. So that includes Citrix virtual apps and desktops, running AVD on top of that, leveraging Endpoint Manager, Intune, and even fixing compatibility issues for MSIX. So we're improving IT to streamline packaging and deployment, and had success rates of more than 9x what a lot of folks experience firsthand. And so specifically, I know we've been talking a lot about Citrix. So what does this mean? This means modernizing your applications. As I mentioned before, legacy apps aren't aware of some of these service hardening, so we allow them to continue working. From a hybrid architecture standpoint, if you're in the process of adopting Citrix, or you want, that is the ultimate end goal, we can help you lift and shift there a lot faster without any changes to your application source code. And as well, it's a single application and package across your Citrix and physical desktops. Of course, there's always gonna be that one-off use case, right? If someone's on the road and needs to bring their machine with them or something like that. That's what we help solve for. And we're able to, we eliminate the need for multiple base images and deploy applications across users. Long story short, we enable the application to move with the user and can provision these applications in real time on demand. And then we really help facilitate those multi-session environments and enable applications, again, travel with their users while isolating from others to avoid those compatibility concerns and data leakage estimates. So before I hand it over to we to break down the actual under the hood kind of stuff, how it works, what this really means for you is streamlining IT administration. I know that Damon was talking a lot about some of the headaches for folks as they're trying to, of course, do all of this at scale. And so what happens here is a lot of folks are having to repackage for their various devices, OSs, et cetera. And with cloud paging, you package once, you deploy infinitely. And so you get those packages in, whether it's your VDI, your DAS, a new server environment, we enable you to seamlessly move across all those. Once it's packaged, you can seamlessly move. All you've got to do is point to where, and it doesn't matter where folks are, they can get their applications anytime, anywhere. And so for some context here, these traditional workflows, if we're talking strictly packaging, this can be a multi-week, if not multi-month process. Just get going from the packaging request through the desktop deployment. And with us, that's going to be reduced to a matter of a day or two. So you've got the package request comes in. Even the most complex apps can be packaged within a day, most within like 30 minutes to an hour. So And then that deployment, of course, getting that up into your server environment and distributed is only gonna be about 20 minutes. In being that we don't actually install the applications on client devices, these applications are streaming on demand to users. So the second, all there is the Cloudpaging player, which is Light Agent on the device. The applications themselves are not installing there. They're just streaming directly to it, and those pages are delivered as they're needed. And so the same is true with the deployment process. And so we have instant recall, whereas, sometimes you have to take it down, reconfigure something. Ours is an on-demand. IT can just pull that application back, roll it back for whatever reason, and all that in real time. So I'm going to invite our solution architect, fam, here to kind of walk through really how this all works. Genuinely appreciate your time, and I'll be back on at the end. So cheers.
All right, thank you, Duncan. All right, so let's first talk about Citrix integration. We only need one thing, which is just install the Cloudpaging player on your desktop image or the virtual app server. So the integration is very seamless, very simple. With that integration, because we look and feel like the application is just natively installed on the endpoint client, when you provision applications through Citrix Storefront, for example, we have a wrapper that wraps our API. All you have to do is call the token, which gives access to the application to the user, and that pushes the application to the virtual app server. And once the application is loaded and executes, we hand that off to Workspace, and then Workspace just streams that application to the client. Now, the other integration we do really well is we do, oh, sorry, can we go back? All right, so we also help run these legacy applications. We support kernel mode, like installing drivers, services, COM, DCOM, COM+. We also help with application control. So you can centrally manage your applications by making application upgrades, enforcing patches. We can monitor in real time what the applications, who's using what. We can recall an application, and we can also remove the application quickly because everything is very, it's dynamic provision and then deprovisioned. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so Cloudpaging, 3 simple steps. First, we create the application package, and we do this through our Cloudpaging Studio, which helps with abstracting the application and then putting it into our format. And once that's ready, you have one single application. You load that onto our Cloudpaging server. This is the portion that can help you with delivery. We have 2 offerings, either the online, the hosted cloud, our cloud, or you can install the server on-prem. And then you can integrate that with Storefront or with our enterprise portal, or if you have your own custom portal, you can deliver applications there. We've decoupled delivery from entitlement so that when you request a token from the Cloudpaging server, you can integrate that with your custom portal or through some other entitlement system, and then just pass that token to the user. And once the user has that token, they can execute that application through their Cloudpaging player. So we actually run the application at the user's endpoint. So we're not running on our server and then streaming the results, but the user is actually running the application. And because of the way that we have our container technology, the application is going to look and feel like it was just natively installed on there. So how do we do that? We have our container technology. What we try to do is we try to virtualize the application into our container. And then our approach to compatibility is that we want to open the container to all system processes by default. So even though it's virtualized and it's contained in its own space, all processes can interact with that application. So you have applications that maybe need different integrations with different parts of the OS or with other applications. All of that's going to feel native and interact with those native applications. If you need to isolate certain parts of the application, so we offer the ability to selectively isolate. So you don't need to just isolate completely or integrate completely, but you can choose. And this is really powerful because, for example, you can isolate just maybe the dependencies for that application. So let's say you have an older legacy application that has old Java dependencies. You can make just the Java dependencies isolated so that only the application itself sees those dependencies and not the rest of the operating system. We also offer the ability to go outside of our sandbox. And this is where we offer the maximum compatibility, is that, we strive to virtualize the application, but if for whatever reason we cannot virtualize it, or parts of the application, you can just install the other parts physically onto that system, and then still be able to manage and control the application when we deploy or uninstall the application. So everything is just within our own stack. You don't need to create a separate script in order to do installations. Everything is done through the studio, and then it gets pushed out to the player. The other thing that we use to help with controlling and optimizing applications is through our the way that we have processes interact with the container. So applications are actually run in the user space. So they are siloed off from other users. So this is what we mean when we say that the applications can travel with the user. So if you use us in conjunction with FSLogix, for example, we actually have the ability to move our sandbox container into the user's profile path so that the user can have their applications travel with them as they go to different hosts. And one of the things that we help with compatibility in these multi-session environments is the ability to selectively choose which processes can interact with that application. So if there are incompatibilities between applications, you can silo them off separately, or you can selectively integrate with certain applications but deny other applications. And what this means, though, is that you don't have to worry about configuring and then worrying about compatibility issues when you deploy these applications. Your IT staff can have all those configurations and considerations configured first, and then be seamlessly able to deploy the application without worrying about compatibility issues. We also have the ability to help you with your software asset management. Now, because of the way that you're able to dynamically provision applications and deprovision them, obviously, we can provision applications on demand, and you can also integrate with storefronts or with whatever third-party provisioning service you want to use. We are able to monitor and applications in real time, so you can meter who's using what, how long they were using it for, when did they start using it, and where were they using it from. You have the ability to control updates and rollbacks. So let's say you need to ensure that everyone is on the same application version. You can force them to be on the same version by enforcing an update. You can quickly remove applications or revoke their access. And then obviously, because you can do that, you can easily transfer across not just the same user across physical and virtual, but also between users. So let's say you have a limited number of licenses. Because you're able to pull back licenses quickly, you can be really efficient with your licenses in that, instead of buying 100 licenses for 100 users, and maybe not all of them are using the licenses at the same time, you can reduce that maybe to 50 users and 50 licenses so that now you're saving money and not having to worry about having enough licenses for all your users. All right, next slide. All right, I'll hand this back to Duncan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wei. So I know before we wrap up here, we wanted to just kind of talk about this in a customer scenario, for example, within a Citrix environment. So we had a customer that had 70,000 Citrix users within their environment. And ultimately, the challenge was getting from an older version, leveraging Windows Server 2012 to Windows Server 2019. And so what happened is we did some preliminary discovery, and we found 40% of legacy applications or questions or legacy apps in question were failing or raised issues in testing. And so they were an AppV shop, but AppV was only providing coverage for about 70% of their apps. And like we've talked about, with the way things are moving, AppV's end of life is coming, and that's going to be legacy. And really, before we know it, we could be talking Windows 10 as legacy. And there were multiple base images needed to deliver all these applications across 70,000 users. So where we plugged into this situation was Cloudpaging was leveraged to package those images that AppV could not, so that remaining 30%, and then run alongside AppV while converting the existing application state to Cloudpaging to future-proof this, because as these emerging OSs are coming out, once packaged, you know, for example, Windows 11, all you've got to do is move those packages from Windows 10 to Windows 11, or say from Server 2019 to 2022. All your work is already done for you. And so the results is we actually were able to get 100% packaging deployment success rate and achieve a single base image to serve 70,000 users. And we're not just talking like a handful of applications here. We're talking 300 plus apps. And better yet, we were able to finish this project, which was the course of about 2-3 months, a couple weeks or a week ahead of schedule. So really, I think demonstrates the value of Cloudpaging within your Citrix environments. And really, it's unlocking the entire value of your ecosystem. So we're enhancing desktop performance by enabling you to just stream those applications to end users on demand, eliminating that downtime, because we're actually offloading a lot of the application updates and upgrades to Numecent, and folks are just streaming those apps directly on demand. We're maximizing compatibility. As we mentioned, we're eliminating a lot of those roadblocks for compatibility, whether it's a legacy application, something that's highly customized. For that example with 70,000+ users, there's a highly customized app that had 60+ plugins. One of those updates, you have to roll back the machine if you're not leveraging Cloudpaging or something like that. And there's collective downtime. When we're talking that many users, we're talking 15,000 hours of collective downtime. And so that's what we're helping mitigate there. And then improving security and compliance as well with those multi-session environments. We're encrypting everything with advanced encryption, AES 256-bit at rest, and in transit, the instant application recall and reporting capabilities to really ensure that you can prove compliance in an on-prem and cloud context. And then reducing IT costs and manual overhead. Of course, you don't have to package apps every time there's an update, where they've got the package once, deploy infinitely, hopefully saving you a lot of headaches. You can focus on your core business initiatives and whatnot. So I know we're coming up on time here. Wanted to open up if there's any questions, and then hand the mic back on over to Jason here.
Yeah, one quick question here that we got, for Duncan Quee, whoever wants to answer here, is that, there's a lot of Citrix folks on the line here, and, inevitably Citrix folks are always charged with, installing that application, customizing that application to get it run in those virtual environments. How does this product, help those admins? Are they going to be required to install one of these apps, do all this configuration, or, is there a way to offload some of that with Numecent?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Trying to unmute my mic here. Okay. Yeah. So you're able to dynamically provision applications. Again, keeping that one golden image, right? You don't have to worry about managing your images for these application estates. You package once in our platform. You deliver it to any number of desktop endpoints, whether that's going to be your workspaces, virtual app server, or even physical desktops. So for applications that, especially with these complex applications, that you worry about packaging them and optimizing them one time, and then you don't have to worry about repeating that work.
And that's great to hear, right? Because I know that, being on the other side of that, it knows how much that, time consuming that is to have to repackage app, to put it here, put it over there, go through this process. It has been quite time consuming for a lot of our users. So I want to say thank you, Hui and Duncan. We really appreciate it. This technology truly does help create that, that ultimate end user experience. By being able to abstract applications right from those images, and then instead of have to run all those different pieces that we need to deliver this, we can now streamline it. So thank you very much.